Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Board Game Specialists. I'm Carla.
And I'm Melanie.
And we are on episode 35. And today we are going to talk about our top 9 nature-themed games. Now, before we do that, Melanie, what have you been playing lately?
I've played lots, actually.
Nice.
Finally. I was at a friend's house today, so we played a few games there. And then I had some friends over on Friday, so we played a few games then. And then I have played a few games throughout the week. So I did try a solo game.
Oh, wow.
I played Tiny Epic Zombies solo because it was on the Diced tutorial. So the tutorial is great, and you go through and it goes through the whole videos and teaches you the game. And I love Diced for tutorials. Solo play is just not for me. I never finished a game. It's like, okay, I'm done. I don't know how to play the game. That's good. I'm not finishing this. So, yeah. So I did play Framework, Pirate Flux, Quattro again. I'll kind of list what I played and then talk about a few of them. One of the games I did play was a game I got recently called Blue Moon City by Reiner Knizia.
Oh, neat.
And that one was super neat. You have this board, like all these tiles you create a board with, and you're going from like location to location trying to kind of get control of it. And you have these dragons, and when the dragon's on the location, then you have enough, is it gem? To kind of, because there's different requirements for each one. So it could be that, with your cards, and be like, okay, well, you need to have 5 blues here, and then you can spend your cards to get 5 blues. But then if a dragon is on site, because some of your cards will have special ability where you can bring the dragon over and stuff like that, then you actually also get a dragon scale. And then when you complete the card, you get the benefit of that card as well. And it's a really neat, I guess, kind of like an area control where you're going around trying to control all these different locations. And then one, like, let's say, has 3 different requirements for that one. The 3 requirements, whoever has the most requirements there gets the big benefit of it, and the other one gets the smaller benefits. And it was really neat. It's very simple to play, but kind of it's fairly strategic. And then I played Harbour, which I had heard a lot about lately. Actually, I hadn't heard about this in a long time, but it's a Scott Alms game, so it's a small box, big game feel. Somebody had compared it to like a mini Le Havre. And you're kind of going around and you have these resources that you have, and the market is in place, but the value of things in the market can change all the time. And then when you sell, let's say you sell cattle, then the cattle one gets reset and goes to the back, so then it changes the value of what you got. And then you're trying to sell these goods, and then you get so much money for it, but there's no actual physical money, and right away you would spend that to buy a building card. And then if you have, I have enough to do this one, so you get that one, and the first one to get 4 cards triggers the end of the game, and then you tally all your points, and then that was neat. I played Liar's Dice this afternoon as well, because I bought this game in the spring, but from a friend in Lethbridge, and then it didn't make its way to Calgary until FallCon. So then at FallCon I got my copy there, but I misplaced it and it accidentally got packed up with the FallCon library. And I'm going through my games. I'm like, hey, I know I got it. Where's this game? So then I called my friend Bonnie, who has the FallCon library at her house, and then she's like, oh, it is here. So then, but this version of the Liar's Dice is so neat. You have the neoprene mat in the middle that you keep track of what you're bidding. And then you have all these like leather cups, and with like the pirate symbols on the bottom of the cups, and then you have like these kind of bone pip dice things, and then you kind of shake, and it's a bidding game. Basically, you're trying to, ones are wild, and you kind of shake the dice and you look at what you have. You have 5 dice to begin with, and if I have like 2 1s and 2 5s, then I'd be like, okay, well, so in my hand I have at least 4 5s. But I suspect somebody else has more 5s, so I might start and say, okay, I bid that there is 6 5s out there. And now the next person can either bid a higher pip, so bid that there's 6 out there, or go at a higher number and say, well, okay, well, I'm going to say that there's 7 3s. So then that bid moves up all the time. And then you either bid up or you challenge the previous bidder. And then if you challenge the previous bidder, then that person has to reveal, and then you put all of that number and the ones in the middle and see if they've match the bid. If they did, then the challenger loses a dice. If they weren't successful in their bid, then they lose a dice. So then you have less dice that you're playing with. And it's an elimination game, so last man standing is the winner. But that was super simple, completely luck driven. But it's just a satisfying quick filler game. I played Hollywood Bloclbuster. This is another Reiner Knizia game. And this one is hilarious because it's another bidding game. You have all these contracts that you can bid to hire producers and actors and sound effect and visual effects and all these things. And you're trying to complete, like you have your movie card and you're trying to complete all the elements of the movie to score the movie. But some actors are worth more than others. And then you kind of score your movie at the end and whatever has a higher score, but then you'll be awarded, there's awards as well, so best movie gets this, or first movie of the series gets this, and so on. And it's hilarious, the puns they have in there. They're not using the actual actor's name, so they have Demi Les and Nicholas Rage and all these funny names. And then the same thing for the titles, they had the Monty Snake and the Special Cup. And it's just hilarious when you're playing it. Played Thieves Market again, and I talked about that one not too long ago. I played Phantom Inc., which was amazing. I want this one. I want to play it for Halloween. And it's one of those, you have two teams. One player on each team is the ghost, and then the two ghosts are going to look at a card and there's a list of names. So it kind of reminds me a little bit of Word Slam in that way. And then you pick a word. So let's say we pick zombies. So then zombies is a word that you want to get your team to guess. And then the team will kind of look at these different questions they have, and they'll hand you two questions. So it could be like, okay, so what is the opposite of this? Or how can I use it? Well, I don't know how you use a zombie, so I'm not going to answer that question. You discard the one question and be like, okay, so the opposite of this. And you give that question back to your teammates. The other team has no idea what the question is. And then you answer one letter at a time. It's like, okay, H. Be like, okay, give me another letter. U. Okay, give me another letter. M. And you'd be like, okay, stop. I'm pretty sure it's human. So then they kind of have an idea of what the answer is. The other team, okay, it's hum. Maybe, could be they guess they're human, but they have no idea what the question was. So they don't know how that clue fits in. Right? And then you're kind of giving these clues one level at a time for each side of the team until somebody guess what the word is. But it was so neat. I really, really enjoyed it. We played this 3 times in a row. Played High Society. That one was neat. Kind of reminded me of For Sale. But it was neat because you're bidding on these riches. Right? It's kind of like, oh, there's a mansion or there's a yacht, and then you're kind of bidding money towards it. And then you're also bidding on these bad things. Oh, there's a fire at the mansion, you lose half your points. So like, oh no, I don't want that card. So you got to keep bidding to not take that card, and first person to pass will take that negative cards. Everybody else lose whatever money they've put in the bid. And then that person doesn't lose anything, right? But then they got the bad card. So you kind of do that. And then at the end, whoever has the least amount of money left in their hand is eliminated. Doesn't matter what they collected. And then the people staying is whoever has the most prestige of what they've purchased. So that one was really neat. I really enjoyed that one. And then I played 2 prototype games. We played Killer Robot Speed Dating. And that one is hilarious. I don't wait till Paul publishes because I need it. But you have all these cards that have matches out there. So you start with 4 characters. It could be like a vampire and a spy, and then there's an alien and a princess or whatever it is. And you're trying to find the match of the other card that you have. And then you have these different cards that have just random word type of answers on it. So it plays a little bit like Cards Against Humanity in that way, where on your turn you'll pick a question that you'll put down, and it's like a speed dating question. You get 2 and you pick one. So I was like, okay, so what would make you jealous, for example? And then you would take all the cards that you have in front of you and answer in the way that one of your characters would say. Well, maybe you have the werewolf and you would think that, somebody being stronger would make you jealous or something. So you would put strength or, whatever card you have. But these answers get really, really ridiculous, and it's hilarious. And then you'd be like, okay, well, I think the way you answer that, maybe you also have the pirate. So then I'm going to hand the pirate to you, and you're going to see if it's a match. Great. Those get discarded, and we get points, and you're trying to be the first one to discard all your characters. If it wasn't a match, you take your pirate back, but then you have to draw a new character. So now you have more characters trying to discard, but it was hilarious. And then I played Qua Pla, which is Michael's prototype game that basically, to me, it reminds me of Battleship, but it's cooperative team Battleship that you play in Klingon. And you got to give all these, like you have this cheat sheet in front of you, and you have to give this instruction trying to get the spaceships on 2 levels, because it's a 3D game, on 2 different levels in the right location. So you're going to tell them, it's like, okay, rise a level, and then go forward, and then to the right. But you're going to say all of these things in Klingon. So you'd be like, okay, take ship, and then take ship says like, whatever, how you say that in Klingon. I can't do it without the cheat shit in front of me. But like, as you're saying it, it's hilarious. You're just kind of yelling out these strange sounds, and then they're trying to figure out what you're saying and moving these ships. And then when you move your final white ship to the right location, then you fire a torpedo, and the last ship that the other team is playing with gets discarded. So then they lose that ship, it's destroyed. Then you take on the next card and you go again. And until all of the ships of the other player is destroyed. And that's the first portion of the game. He kind of designed a second portion to it that kind of goes further beyond that, but we haven't played that. We just didn't have the time. But it's just that first portion is a complete game, and it was hilarious. It was neat, and that was Qua Pla. How about you? What did you play?
I played a few too as well. One of the first ones was I got my big Kickstarter collector's version of Castles of Mad King Ladwig.
Nice.
I got that to the table, and it's so beautiful. It's huge. I didn't get the colossal size, which I don't know who has a table that would fit that one. Because
no kidding.
This one we played with 3 people, and I don't even know if we could have fit a 4th on there with like building your castle out. But the player or the game board is so nice. It's like a little like lake that you flow through is the scoreboard, and then you put all the tiles. They have like insert trays that you just put right on with all the tiles, so they're all set in there. And then you have your player token is this swan, this like plastic swan, and there's about 15 different colors you could be. I don't know why we need that many colors, but then there's like metal coins with it, and then the cards are all big nice cards, and it's just so nice. And then there's a tower expansion, so it adds a neat thing, a new tile, and then once you complete that room, you get to take this like physical tower and put it on top, and then you get to take a King's Favor tile. You get to look at 2 and keep 1, and then put it under the tile, so only you're going to score for that. Whereas, there's usually 3 that everybody will score for. So if you have the most of something, nobody else will score that one, but that's kind of neat. And it's just so beautiful. I'm so happy with it. It's awesome. So I want to play that again soon. Also, we got Paint the Roses to the table. And this one is a deduction game. And I had seen this for a while, and I sort of passed on it thinking, it just looks too simple, or I don't know, just not fun. But it was really tricky. You have this garden that you're building with tiles, and everybody has different levels of cards. There's easy, medium, and hard. And on the cards, it'll have a match of 2 tiles. It'll either have a color to color or a color to shape, or it could be the hard ones could be a shape to a color. Could be any of them on the hard ones, so you don't know. But you're going to, each turn you place a tile, and then next to another one, and then you'll put some clue tokens on. So if you have, say, 2 matches with this, you'll put 2 on, and there could be like 4 other tiles around, so people have to kind of deduct, well, okay, she put it here and not over there, where that would have given her, like, if it was color to color. So it's possibly shape to shape. And then other people can put clue tokens on, because you could just freakishly help them with their cards. And what you're trying to do is, as soon as you do the clue tokens, you do have to guess one person's card. And
Yeah.
if you get it right, you'll get the points on the card, and you'll move up those many points on this track, and the queen will only move one, whatever her speed is at. But if you get it wrong, she doubles her speed, and she's trying to catch you and cut your head off, right? Queen of Hearts. It's an Alice in Wonderland theme.
Nice.
So it's really interesting though, and there's different ways to make it harder, and there's like a cool expansion where you're trying to escape the castle and collect all these keys. So we've only played it once, but we definitely want to try that one again. Another one we played yesterday, we went to a game sale at Ogre's Den in Calgary, and we brought a bunch of games to sell. Now, it wasn't that great of a sale. There was only maybe 4 or 5 of us, 5 tables, and not a lot of traffic. Oh, really? Yeah, it's not actually a game cafe. It's more of like, I think, like a Warhammer type place.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of tables. There's not really a store there.
Yeah, they did have a few games for sale, but so there wasn't a lot of like traditionally board gamers coming in to check out the sale, but we still played games while we were, selling or whatnot. So we played a couple. We played Clans of Caledonia, which is one of my favorite games. A nice kind of area control market fluctuation farming game, which sounds like that couldn't all work together, but it works so well together. I love that one. And we played Endeavor Age of Sail. Now, this is another area control that I had tried once with Ashley. Kind of, tentative, like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like it. But I actually really liked it because there's some really cool mechanics in how you upgrade your things. And, I mean, I don't think I battled once. So you don't have to, like, it's not a huge part of the game, like, taking over people's spots.
Right.
But it's cool because you'll kind of place a token and claim a spot. And then if you can claim one that's like kind of across from it, you'll get the token in the middle as well. And those will just help you upgrade. So you're just constantly upgrading things. And it's really pretty. She has some really upgraded tokens on it. And you just move up your tracks. You're basically trying to move them. And you get to build a building every round. And that's the time tracker. And once you've filled your board, it's the end of the game. And it's quite quick, but it's actually really neat. Now, the last one I want to talk about is another deduction game that we played, because after that, we went over to the Cafe D6 tabletop. To play some more games, and it's so nice in there.
They're fairly new, right?
Yeah, 2 brothers own it. Now, I can't remember their names. Solomon and... can't remember their names, but I'll think of it. But it's a beautiful cafe. And so it was nice and calming in there, and we had some teas and coffees and some snacks, and played and learned Picture Perfect. So this one is really cool because you have all these standees. Everybody has the exact same, like, people, dogs, plant, food, and then you have all these envelopes with each of the person, dog, food on the envelope, and you shuffle all these cards, and you're going to stick 3 in each of these envelopes. And then we each started with 4. It's different per player count, but so you look in these envelopes at these 3 cards, and they'll give you like something that person wants to be, how they want to be in this picture, because you have this screen in front of you with a floor and a table, and then there's spots all around this table, like there's a little kind of a grid. And so it'll show you on some of these cards, okay, this person wants to be in the middle of the room, and then it kind of shows like a few different squares where they would want to be. And this person also doesn't want to be next to this other person, or this person wants to not show their face, so you have to make sure someone's in front of them. And so it's like, oh, this is easy. And then you look at the other one, and yeah, okay. And then all of a sudden you look at one, you're like, wait a sec, 2 of these things contradict each other on here. Because if you get all three cards right, you're going to get 6 points. If you get 2 right, you'll get 3 points. And if you get 1 right, you'll get 1 point. And if you get none right, you'll get -3. So, but if you leave that person out of the picture, you'll just get 0. So you go through these cards, and then you set those up. And then there's also like a deck of 6 cards that you'll flip each round, and it'll say, okay, pass 2 to the left. Like, it has a little bit of similarity to Awkward Guess, but not a whole lot. So you do this, you go around and you try to get as many people as you can, because you want to see, like, okay, well, this one doesn't want to be here, so I can't put her here, but she wants to be next to him. And so then you place these all, you finish the deck, and then you also have this VIP card that you can stick in one envelope, and that will double all the points. So if there's one where you're like, oh, I've got this one like 100%, you'll stick that in. Everybody will score double. So maybe some of them didn't even place that person because they didn't see that envelope.
Right.
And it's really neat. So then at the end, you take a picture of it, and to make sure that like if there's people hiding and don't want their face shown, or they're beside this one, and then you just go and score. You go through all the envelopes and you just score, and it's really neat. I didn't know what that would be like because I'd kind of tossed and turned about maybe purchasing that one, but I thought I need to play it first. And there's tons of expansions that can add more variety to it, like pickpocket and all kinds of things. But it was really neat. I was pretty impressed with that, and such an easy learn. Like you could learn that one in 5 minutes, totally easy. But let's get on with our top 9 now. How did you find this category for you?
So at first I was like, okay, nature games. I was like, oh my god, I hope I have enough. And I know you had the opposite problem.
This was my hardest
I didn't
list
include
to date.
like I didn't include farming.
No.
Like stuff that'd be like, well, like I was like, oh well, viral, technically that's nature, germs or it's like, so I didn't include that type of stuff. There's probably one that kind of twists that rule a little bit, but so I ended up, I think it was with maybe like around 20 games or so. Or maybe 15, like something like that, 15 to 20 games. So, and then there's a few that I have that looks amazing that I'm excited to play that are nature themed, but I just haven't played them.
Oh no.
So, and then one of them is it Kodama? I don't know what it is, but you got all these cards and you have a big tree trunk card and you add these branch cards to it. So I haven't played that one, but it looked cool. So there's a few of those. How about you? How was this one for you? You saying it's the hardest one?
The worker placement and the abstract strategy and like a few of the lists we've done so far I thought were hard, but this was the hardest one for me. I have over 60 nature themed games. I seriously have a nature addiction, I think. And I think I have 12 on the way from Kickstarter. And just looking at it, I'm like, wow, I really
That's a theme that appeals to you, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I love to hike. I love animals. I love being outdoors. So that's probably why. And they're usually very good looking games, the nature games. Yeah. Like the art is a big thing in them. But I didn't, same as you, I did not include farm themed games. And I also didn't include zoo games. I have a few of those, which I didn't include, but like they could have very well been. And I have all like actual big games. I didn't pick any of my card, like just smaller ones. Like some of the good ones that I have, like just for an honorable mention was like Ecosystem, Arboretum. And then like the Steve Flynn series. I don't know if you've played any of them, like Floriferous, Herbaceous, and Sunset Over Water. They're all so pretty, but they just didn't make my top 9. But they are some of my favorites. But
I had to include those.
They are good. They're so good. But I just had. It was like I told you. I said I'm gonna have to sit down with a glass of wine and a box of tissues to do this one. It was like Sophie's Choice. Who am I gonna pick? Anyway, well let's hear what your top 9 is, or your number 9.
Yeah. So my number 9 is one that you've dismissed. Arboretum.
Oh, I love that one.
So Arboretum is published in 2015. It's created by Dan Cassar, and it's a Renegade Game Studio game. And this one is really interesting. Now, this one I purchased as a Christmas gift. And then it came in and it was the deluxe edition in the wooden box and all the cards are foiled. And I was like, oh, I want to keep it. So I ended up keeping it and bought them a different game instead. And then, but it's interesting. So it's all different trees. So you'll have like poplars or the maple trees and then all this stuff. So you have all these trees and they go from, I can't remember if it's 1 to 14 or 1 to 15 or what the number range is, but it goes, or 1 to 18, something like that. And then you have so many cards in your hand and you'll play a card. Is it play a card, discard a card?
Yeah, I forget which one is first. It's been a while since. But you do both.
Yeah, so you play discard and then you draw back up.
Yeah.
But then everybody has their own discard pile. And you can draw from the discard pile as well. And then everybody's discard pile. And you're trying to create these paths in the forest. And the path has to go up in numerical order. Now you can skip some. So you could go like from 1 to 4 to 6 and so on. But you want the path, in order for the path to count, it has to start with the same tree as it ends. You can have different trees in between. Now, if they're all the same type of trees, you will get a bonus for that. But you only score the trees if you have the majority of that particular tree's points in your hand as well. So it's really tricky because you want to put the cards to get the path, to get the value of it, but you want to make sure you keep the card in your hand. I think it's 1 to 8. The range, because if you have the 8 card, that's the highest one. It's great, but if the other player kept the 1 eliminates the 8 if it's in your hand. So it's like, oh no, it's like, so now I don't have the majority of this number, and I have this great path, but I'm not the one who scores it. So it has really kind of interesting elements to it. It was like you're trying to build the path, but you're also trying to keep the points in your hand in order to be the one to build that particular path. And so you're going to be like, okay, well, I'm not even going to try this tree. I'm going to try, like, you got to, because you can't build path for everyone. You're going to have to try to pick and choose which one you think are more likely to be able to score. But it's really interesting with those two kind of elements going. And then the path, you can go like sideways, up, down, backwards, like it, as long as not diagonal, but like you're just kind of creating, then you're adding all these different cards. It's interesting. And that's my number 9, Arboretum.
That's an awesome choice. I love that game. I just don't get to play it much because I haven't found a group that likes it. Like my normal play group, actually, Ashley hasn't tried this one, but Cherry doesn't like this game. She actually dislikes this game. So at conventions, I kind of try to think before, I gotta get that game played there, but then I always forget. But it's so fun and puzzly, and there's there's take that in there, when you're trying to hold that card that, you think you're gonna score that, do you? Oh, you're not. I don't usually love take that, but it's fun in this one.
Yeah, for sure.
My number 9 is Canopy, made in 2021 by Tim Eisner. And I'm just going to list some of the art because these are all such beautiful games. The artist is Vincent Dutrait, and he does a lot of games.
Yes.
So this is a 2-player game. You can play with 4 if you buy another box, basically. And I've never played it that way, but just a 2-player is just perfectly fine. And what you do is you have these 3 rows of cards, and you will look at one of the cards, and if you want it, you'll take it. And if you don't, you'll put it back down and you'll add another card to it, and then you'll go to the second column. Do the same thing. If you want it, you take it. If not, put it back, add a card, take the last column. You can also pass on that one and just grab one off the top of the deck. And what you're doing with these cards is you are building trees. Like you are building them up, trying to get them at high levels because they're usually, most of them will have higher points, and you're building like kind of an ecosystem with animals and plants and all kinds of things. But some of the plants only want so many cards, so it'll say if you have 1, you'll get this many, 2, this many, 3, and then it'll start going down. So it doesn't want more than 4, so you'll start collecting, and then you don't want one more of those cards. And then same with animals, sometimes you want pairs, and it's all kind of different collecting. You want a sun and a water together, but you don't want one single because it won't give you points. And you're building these trees up as well with these canopies. So as soon as you get another one, you'll add it to your tree. And then once you get a top of the tree, then you have to, that one's complete. You can't just put it to the side. So you're kind of hoping, okay, well, I don't want to put a top on yet because I really want to build this tree, because at the end of the round, you get to score for your trees, and the highest one always gets this little bonus chip. And it's just a really nice, relaxing game. There's some, also some disease cards that you will have to take away some of your cards, but sometimes it does help you because of those collections where, you know, if you get too many, you're going into negative points. So it'll let you take one of those away. And it's just a really neat and beautiful, like the art is just gorgeous on this. And that is my number 9, Canopy.
Nice. My number 8 is Meadow. So Meadow is a 2021 game. It was created by Clemens Kaliki and it's published by Rebel Studio. And this one is really, the artwork is amazing. It's all like watercolors, then every card is unique, and then the attention to details in there is just out of this world. And then you have 4 little arrow tokens that you'll kind of tuck in along the side of this board where you have like a 3x3 card set up. And is it 4x4? 3x4?
It's 4x4, I think. Yeah.
It's 4x4. Yeah. So because there's 4 tokens, so that would make sense.
4x4. Yeah.
Yeah. So then there's little notches at each of the locations, so along both sides and along the bottom. So if you put a number 3 in one of the notch, then it means you're collecting the card that is 3 space away from that notch. So okay, I'm taking this card, and then it gets replaced. And it's interesting because the more and you take turn putting your arrows in, but then as you get closer to the end, everybody's picking cards it'd be like, okay, well, I really want this card, but now this notch has been used up, and then this one has been used up, and this one is still available, but I would need a 3 now. I already spent my 3. So it kind of becomes trickier into collecting the card that you need. And then with these cards that you need, they go in your hand, and then you're going to be playing them onto your board, and you have these kind of terrain cards that does the base, and you're going to be adding to it. So the card will be like, okay, well, it needs this terrain and this symbol or whatever. And once you have it, okay, well, I got that terrain, I got that symbol there, so you can play it on either side of those things. And be like, okay, I'll play it in this pile then. But it covers the previous card that was there. So now, be like, maybe it had like a little butterfly, but now you've replaced the butterfly, you have a bird instead. So you better make sure that you're not planning on using a card, placing a card that's going to require the butterfly. Well, no, that's okay. This one actually needs a bird, and this is the one I want. So then this replaced the butterfly, which I don't need, but now I have a bird, so I can play this card. And so it's really interesting in how you're managing which cards you're going to draw just for the symbol that it's going to have, and then where you're going to place and what you're going to cover, because it's going to change what you have available to place on your next one as well. And then if there's like, okay, well, there's nothing I can do from what I need to do, you can actually use the tail end of that arrow one to kind of go around the campfire, and then I'll give you different abilities of things that you can do as well. It's an interesting one. Kind of reminds me of Quadropolis from the way that you draw the card to the way you draw the tile in Quadropolis. And it's just a really neat, beautiful looking game. So that's my number 8, Meadow.
Yeah, good choice. It's gorgeous and fun too. My number 8 is Petrichor, made in 2018 by David Chirkop. And the art is from Danita Attard and Sammy Laxo. Now this one you were playing as raindrops. So you all have your little player raindrops that are little glass beads, not beads, little glass rocks kind of thing. And those you will use to try to get presents on. There's a grid of tiles that they all will do different things. They're all like either grass or corn or flowers, and you're trying to get these all to grow. And so how you do that is there's 4 different actions, and you have a hand of cards at the beginning, and you'll either have sun, wind, rain, or snow, I believe. And those give you all different types of actions. Like one will let you like add a cloud to a tile and put a raindrop in your raindrop. Another one might let you move a cloud, and so like if you're trying to get presents on a different tile, because they won't score unless there's a harvest, and the harvest is decided by these dice in the middle that you can also take as an action, and you will start flipping these dice closer to a harvest because it'll have like a 2 or a 1, and once you put it down to a 1, then it'll turn to a leaf or a wheat, and then once it goes down to nothing, then you're definitely going to have a harvest that round. And once you do, then that is when the tiles will score. So you have to plan, your presence on these tiles at the time that that's going to happen. Otherwise, there's no point in doing it because they're not going to score. It's really neat, and it's so pretty. It is a little mean though. I know it sounds like, oh, it should be cutesy and fun, your little raindrops, but you really are trying to get the other raindrops off off the tile, and you score the most. And some of the tiles aren't just like the most on here wins. Some of them, the second most have more points, or you get all kinds of different things. There's like a cow expansion and a honeybee expansion where it'll like pollinate the tiles, and they will be a little set collection on their own, having honey and all different things. But it's so pretty, and it's so simple looking, but yet so elegant. I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of it, but
no, I don't think I have. I should.
Yeah,
it sounds
it's a unique, definitely a unique mechanic I've never seen in another game, and that's Petrichor, my number 8.
Wonderful. My number 7 is Photosynthesis. This game was published in 2017. It was created by Yalmahach, and it's a blue-orange games. And this is an interesting one. This is another one that is unique in a way. Like, I haven't come across any game that kind of does something similar. And you have this round board, and then you have your own player board that has trees, and everybody's a different type of tree. So it might be like the pine, so you got the green one, or you got the orange one and you're the oak or something like that, right? And you have all these different size of trees, and then you start with, like, on your board, you have to kind of get the trees onto your board in order to be able to place them onto the main board. And then you'll be placing these trees and then growing them onto the main board, and the goal is you're trying to collect as much sun rays as you can. And each round, you have like this piece of cardboard that kind of tucks in the side of the board, and it'll move around the board as the sun rotates around the earth and stuff. So it just hits differently. But the trees are going to cast shadows as well. So the bigger the tree, the longer the shadow it's going to cast. So, and if you're a big tree, then that's okay. You would still, but if you're a little tree next to a big tree, then if you're like the sun's on your side and it hits you first before the other tree, then you'd be fine. But once the sun rotates, now you're in the shadow of that big tree. You're not collecting the sun rays anymore. So it's an interesting puzzle. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm going to plant a tree here, and I'm going to grow this one here. And like you're trying to kind of manipulate where all these trees and how tall they are so that you can try to collect as much sun rays as you can. And you go around so many seasons, and it's interesting. It's a neat looking game, and it's a neat system to it too. So that's my number 7, Photosynthesis.
Yeah, that's a really good one. It's such a unique mechanic in there I find it funny that's 2 now we've listed these beautiful nature games, but they're very mean.
Yeah, right.
People will plop a tree right in front of this whole plan you've had and just kill off your trees, and you're like, what? Yeah, it's very interesting. This designer is making a sort of a sequel to that. It's called Evergreen, that's coming out soon.
Oh.
And it's using wooden trees, like they're smaller ones, but it's kind of got a similar vibe to it as that one, but a little bit different. So I'm kind of looking forward to that one. But
nice, yeah.
That's awesome. That was your number 7. My number 7 is Tang Garden, and this is made in 2019 by Francesco Testini, also Perluca Zizi, and the art is Matthew Mizek. Now, this game is a tile laying game at heart, but there's also a tiny bit of area control, only because you're trying to satisfy what you need on your cards, not that you're trying to take something away from anyone else. But it's very interesting, and it's a beautiful game. It has these beautiful tiles in all different types of landscapes, water, like mountain and different things, and also have like walls on them, because it's a garden basically you're building, and you can connect any that you want, but the more you connect, the more points you'll get. And you will try to like satisfy the favor of like these cards that you have, where this person wants to be facing this type of landscape. And so there's 4 different landscapes that you could put out. Well, there's more than 4, but there's 4 different ways you could put them, like on a square, right? And it'll want this type of, with like mountains and like a wolf or something. So you're trying to find that one and be able to place it there so that this person is facing that. and then they want to be like, they just want to be in different situations. So you're trying to do that. And you also are trying to set collect at the same time with different like fish, like collecting different fish or trees and all kinds of things. And the board is so busy, but it's just beautiful because you're actually building up like a 3D Tang Garden. And if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever seen a picture of this one, but it looks a lot heavier. Cover. Just the box cover, yeah, you have to kind of look at just the board and like with someone who has played it, and you just look and you're like, wow. And it looks like it would be like a heavy game. It's not. It's fairly light, but it's so beautiful. And I think I know I got this gifted to me, and it's just it's something that I'll cherish just because it's the beauty of it alone, and then it's got cool gameplay too, so that's always a bonus.
Yeah,
and that's my number 7, Tang Garden.
Perfect. My number 6 is Lotus. Lotus was created in 2016 by Jordan and Mandy Godard, and it's created by Renegade Game Studio. Now this one is really pretty looking, and it's so neat because it's a card game and you're placing cards. But the cards are kind of designed so that they stack on top of each other to create a flower. So some of them are designed and they kind of have like where it overlaps and you kind of tuck them on top of that. So some are going to be three petal flower, or there'll be a 4 petal flower and a 5 petal, and I think up to a 7 petal flower. And it's a control game, like an area control, because you have your cards in your hand that have all these different petals, and you can play so many per round. You have so many actions you can do. You also have these little kind of insect tokens that you can add to an existing flower so that you can increase your control on that particular flower. Because when you complete a flower, the person who completes the flower will take all of those petals, put them in their pile, and each cards are going to count for a point. But then whoever has the most control, because some petals are worth a value of 1, some are going to be worth a value of 2, and if you've put one of your little wooden token on there, that's going to give you extra value as well. So if this was a 3-flower petal and you finished it by putting a petal on it, but the other 2 petals actually belong to the yellow player, well, then that yellow player gets the benefit of having control of that flower. So they'll either get to unlock a special ability or grab extra victory points for having a control, but then you would get the 3 victory points for having collected the flower petals. And you're doing that, kind of creating these flowers, and it's such a neat game. But it's very strategic and then kind of trying to control. I remember the first time I played this with my sister, because she looked at it and she's like, ugh, kind of stupid cutesy game are we playing now? Right? And I was like, no, just because it's like, oh. And then she just thought it would be like, because it's so gorgeous to look at, she just expected it to be a fluffy type of game, right?
Wait, is this the same sister that bought 4 gardens?
Yeah. There's no explaining here.
Yeah.
But then so she's like, oh, real fine, we'll play this. And then expected something really girly and fluffy. And then, but she's like, oh, like it's very strategic, right? Like, so, but it's very neat. It's gorgeous. Has such a neat table presence as you're like forming these flowers. It's just a great game. And that's my number 6, Lotus.
Awesome. Well, my number 6 is a crossover, and that's Meadow. So you had listed the designer, which was Clemens Kalicki, but the artist is Carolina Kajak and Katarina Feibiger. Now, like you said,
they would need a team for all the...
Yeah. It's just a beautiful game. I love it. And it's so relaxing too. It's not a game where you sit and stress while you're playing. You just kind of play your cards and, you try to complete those goals if you can. The little on the campfire there, but it's so neat. And I just found out today, well, I already knew there was an expansion coming, a river expansion, but there's going to be a little adventure campaign, so that it's a little book that's going to, every new adventure is going to change up the rules. So it's kind of neat. I'm kind of excited for that. I just seen that tonight and I was like, oh, sweet. I can't wait for that. But yeah, that's my number 6, Meadow. Beautiful game.
Perfect. So my number 5 is a small card game, so it won't be on your list, and that's Ohanami. It was created or published in 2019, created by Stefan Bendorf, and it was published by Pandasaurus Games. And this one is such a neat, simple puzzle game because you have 10 cards and it's a drafting game. So you've got 10 cards, and on each turn you're going to draw 2 and add them to your garden. And you can have up to 3 gardens. And then when you add to your garden, you either add on the top or add below. And you've got to maintain numerical order as well. So as you put it, okay, well, I've got a 12 and a 17, so I'll put that there. Now, if you get a 15, you can't play it in that garden anymore because it's too high to be below the 12, but it's too low to be above the 17. So now you kind of block that range so that you could add it to another garden or just not draw that one. So you'll do that, adding 2 cards at a time and then kind of passing the deck around until you've played all 10 cards. Then you're going to score that first round. In the first round, you score just the blue cards. Then you're going to do this one again with 10 new cards and adding to your garden. Then you're going to score the blue cards and the green cards. And then you're going to do this a third round, adding to your garden. And then this is where it gets tight. And they're kind of like, oh, geez, I've blocked myself for this and I've blocked myself for that. And then I'm stuck with this. Or it's like, oh, I got to play this card, but it's going to create like a 20-point gap. Well, hopefully that doesn't come out. Oh, great, it came up. So it's kind of interesting how and I get so caught up in trying to maintain the numerical order that I completely forget about which color cards are going to score next. And it's like, not even, it's like, oh, right, we're scoring blues and I've only got 2, so. And then at the end, you score all of the ones. So the blues again, the greens again, and then you also score the pink and the grays. And it's such a neat kind of puzzly game. And it's one of those that, I mean, you can kind of be like, okay, I think she's going to need this. I'm going to keep that. And I was like, oh, I'm going to send her these because she can't use them. So that's going to mess her up. But you're really playing your own game otherwise. And, so all the artwork in there, like, kind of has all these different little, kind of almost Asian garden theme to it. And it's just beautiful to look at. So that's my number 5, Ohanami.
Yeah, that's a good one. And another, like, calming game where you can play over, like, a chat with someone. Like, it's not like you have to, you're focusing on the numbers and the colors, but you can play it very, very socially.
Yeah, leisurely.
Yeah, leisurely, yes. It's so pretty, and yeah, the art is really beautiful in there too. My number 5 is Cascadia, made in 2021 by Randy Flynn, and the art is by Beth Sobel, who has made so many beautiful games as well. Now, this game is about animals in different ecosystems, or just different terrain, basically. And what you're doing is you are placing tiles. They're hexagonal tiles. But while you're placing a tile, or while you choose a tile, you will also choose this little wooden animal above it. Now, there's, I think, 5 out on the board, so you will always choose the one above it. If you do want to take a different one, you can pay one of your acorns, which you start with 1, I believe, at the beginning of the game. And you can get more throughout the game. But then you will take a tile and place it in your little area and connecting it to another one. It doesn't have to connect like to the same terrain, but it will help you because the more connections you have, like the longer or the bigger groups you have of each terrain, the more points you will score. And if you have the most, you'll get a bonus point. So you do want to keep that in mind, but you also are trying to put these animals in different patterns depending on these scorecards that you have. So you might have like the one where the salmon wants to be in a run that is, with certain things around it, or it just wants to have at least like 6 in a row, like as long as it's circling back, it just has to keep going and flowing. And then there's like bears that will want to be in either pairs or maybe triples, but don't want other bears around them. So it's very puzzly, and you're trying to place these animals in patterns that they need to be to score points, and you're trying to get all these animals out there to score the most points, but you can't do it all. So you have to pick and choose which ones you really focus on, like, okay, I'm going to really focus on the elk this time, or the hawks. And then there's also foxes that usually want to be around variety of animals, and it just depends because there's about 5 different scoring cards for each animal, so the game will change up every time. But the tiles are just like the cardboard hexagon tiles, but the wooden animals are so pretty. And the setup for this game is literally pull out, depending on player count, how many tiles, and you have the bag of the wooden ones and you're ready to go. So it's the easiest setup. And there's also like a little campaign you can play if you want, and there's like a solo variant, and it's a very simple one. You're basically just playing your own game, but it's just such a nice one that you can pull out. You can play this one on the deck for sure, and with multiple people, or it's a really good 2-player game as well. But it's just so beautiful, and that's my number 5, Cascadia.
Yeah, Cascadia is great for sure. So now we're number 4, and my number 4 is Bosk, and that's published in 2019. It was created by Derry Andrews and Erica Bouyeris, and it's published by Floodgate Games. And this was a friend's copy. He had brought it over for Fall Cant, I think, or just a visit or some sort. But anyway, so we ended up playing it, and it's neat. It reminds me of Photosynthesis because you all have the trees that you're placing. But in this one, it plays in 2 rounds. So the first round is you place your trees, and it's an area control. You're trying to take control of these different areas, and you're doing that. Then after the second round, you will be spreading your seeds from where your tree is, and then you're kind of creating the area control with the seeds as well. And depending on when, you can go so many spaces away, and then you're trying to kind of spread your seeds around. That sounds bad. And it's kind of like, so it's a 2-part puzzle. Now it's gorgeous to look at because it looks so neat when you have like the board all set up. And it was a neat puzzle. And I've only played it that one time. And I don't own this game. But it was such a neat kind of, like I said, photosynthesis, but it wasn't about sun rays. It was kind of about like the area control a little bit more, and it was very neat. So that's my number 4, Bosk.
Yeah, I've seen this one a few times. The colors in this game are like the color tablet that they picked is so beautiful. They're like deep, rich autumn colors, but there's still some purples in there, I think. It looks so neat, and I've seen it on sale somewhere, and I can't remember, and I kind of was almost going to buy it, but I think I wanted to watch the play of it first, which I still haven't, but it sounds interesting, and it looks gorgeous. Awesome. That was your number 4. My number 4 is Keyston, North America, made in 2022 by Jeffrey Joyce and Isaac Vega. Now, the art in this one is by Irene Erbiller and Alyssa Menold and Jan Tamba. Now, this is near and dear to my heart, because there's a lot of Canadian animals in this, and like I said before, like we see them here in Canada. Some of them are actually, they name them like the Canadian lynx and all different things. Right. But what you do in this game is it has a numeric similarity to Arboretum, where you're trying to get rows and columns, but you start with 1 and try to move up or down. But the thing with this one is you have to go like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 2, 3, 4, 5, or 5, 4, 3, 2 in order to score that ecosystem. So you're trying to have like symbols on cards in your rows and columns with when you're moving up or down the numbers, because that's how you will score those. If you have at least 2 that have the same pattern and are numerically like up or down, then you will get to score those. Now, I haven't figured out, but I'm pretty sure it's impossible to score everything on your board because it's a 5x5, I believe. No, is it a 4? Yeah, it's a 5x5. So there's no way you could go 1, 2, 3, 4 across. No, it is a 4. It's a 4x4. Sorry, not a 5x5. It's a 4x4. Because then, and the numbers will go from 1 to 5 on these animals, and they'll all have a whole bunch of different symbols. They'll also have a season on them, and those will score differently with your end game goals, because they want all different kinds of things on that card. They want, the normal ecosystem card symbols. They want a pattern of, sun symbols. They want to be in an L, and so you're trying to fulfill all these things, but you're never going to be able to do it all. So you have to try and maximize your points. Now, some of these animals will have keystones on them, and those ones are usually the big point ones, because if they are in your ecosystem, that one will double score. So you want to have as many of those as possible, because if you had 4 and each of your card from 1 to 4, you're gonna score that 4 times. Now it's kind of hard to get them because everybody wants those keystone animals, because they usually also have a lot of symbols on them. Now, there's also a board in front of everyone that has 5 different abilities you can do if you don't want to choose a card that round. Because choosing a card is kind of neat too, because you can take the first card, or if you want the second one, you have to place a little acorn down. And if you want the third one, you have to place one on the first 2. So you're using these, they're called synergy tokens, to buy your cards, but especially if you want one down the line, you're going to have to spend a bunch of them. Now, if you use the player or the powers in the middle of the board, you will get to either, it'll let you switch a card around, because you normally, once a card is laid, you can't move it. Or it will give you a bunch of synergy tokens, or it'll place like a research token onto one of your animals, which will add a point to it. And it's just all different types of puzzly things, like Sudoku-y, which I just love. Seem to have a lot of those games where you're trying to fit things in a grid in the most prime way possible, but looking at it with the beautiful art, it just makes it so much nicer. And that's my number 4, Keystone North America.
Nice. Yeah, that one looks neat. Like, I've seen it, but I've never played it yet.
Yeah,
so.
It's tricky.
Perfect. So now the number 3 is where I'm breaking my nature theme a little bit. Because I haven't really been doing, with this one. Anyways, well, my number 3 is evolution.
Oh, yeah. That's nature.
And I just find, because it's about the changes of the animal species, that it has more of a nature-y theme to it. So it's published in 2014. It's created by Dominic Krapichet, Dmitry Nor, and Sergey Machin, and it's published by North Star Games. This is one that the first time I played it, I was like, okay, yeah, it's good. And I played it the second time because the kids kept insisting on playing it. They loved it.
Oh, really?
So then I was like, all right, fine, I'll play it again. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, no, it's good. And I played it again. I was like, oh, yeah, this is good. And the last time I played, I was like, this game is so amazing. It grows on you. But you start with an animal, and you have this species, and it's just have this card, and you kind of have 2 cubes that'll control the population and the size of your animal. And then you have these cards that have different characteristics that you can give your animals, and you'll be able to give them up to 2 or 3 characteristics. I can't remember if it's 2 or 3. And then could be like, okay, well, I'm going to give mine a long neck so it can go and draw from food first. And you'll do that, and then all this stuff. And then at the start of the round, everybody's going to take one of those cards, and you're going to discard it in the watering hole face down. And that's where you're going to go collect the food. And everybody flips it over, and the value onto it is how much food goes in there. And you have a little screen where you put all the food that you've collected, because the goal of the game is to have collected the most amount of food by the end of the game. So, and then you get to collect food for each one of your animals. So if I have a population of 3, I'm trying to get them fed 3 times. So in order to collect more food, you want to have more animals. But then you can start one of the thing is like, hey, I'm going to develop fatty tissue so then I can actually store food for the next round. And then could be like, okay, well, food is starting to get scarce because there's so many animals out there. So I'm going to make my animal now a carnivore. So it'll actually feed off the other animals. But in order to be able to feed on the other animals, it has to be bigger. You can't have an animal your carnivore eat an animal that's bigger than they have to be smaller. But then some of them could be like, all right, well, because you have this, your size kind of gives you protection, but then it'd be like, okay, well, I'm not bigger, but I have a shell on my back, and that gives me extra protection, so it actually makes my size count as a +1 for against carnivores. And then you'll have some where they have warning calls abilities, so that so there's all these different things that you can add to your animal that's going to affect how they get to feed or how they protect themselves from being fed on. And then you can have like some where it's like, well, I have babies easily, so you can increase the population easily and that sort of stuff. So it's neat. It's very interesting. And I mean, there's all sorts of different expansion that'll add climate, that'll add flight. They've created like an ocean theme one as well now that I haven't played yet. But it's a fun one. And that's my number 3, evolution.
Well, I would think that would definitely fit in the nature theme because it's all, nobody's, messing with that. That's all just natural stuff. But yeah, it's that one can be a mean game as well. I found. I've only played it once though, so I'm
when
still
you go
at
carnivore
the point where
and
I'm
start
like,
eating.
Yeah, I'm still unsure about that one, but probably if I played it more, I would end up liking it. I do have the card version of it, the card game version.
Oh, neat.
Which is played very quick and has a similar, you're trying to get the most food, but it plays very quick and it's a really neat mechanic in it. But yeah, no, that's a good one. That's your number 3. My number 3 is Parks, made in 2018 by Henry Audubon. And the art in this one is done by the 59 Parks print series. So this is a bunch of artists, which they don't list, that produce all the art in this. And they do sell like prints as well. So you can get like each card that it shows, you could actually order a print in that. And the art in this is just beautiful. It's sort of, it's like a different type of art. It's not like, I don't think it's a watercolor. I'm not sure what it is. I don't know much about art, just like to look at it and and admire. But what you do in this game is you are a hiker on a trail and you set up a trail. There's 4 rounds. It'll change every round because you'll shuffle all these cards up and add another one. But you're going to move along this trail and collect resources, and then you're trying to visit parks, which are the cards with the big art on them. And those cards will have different resources that require for you to visit the park. Now, it sounds like a very simple game, which it is. It's very simple, but it's interesting because you can, as you're walking along this path, like nobody can go to the same tile as you unless they flip their campfire. So they can flip it for it to being on as to it being off. And then they can't do that anymore until they get to the end because you each all have 2 hikers. So you're trying to collect these resources. You can collect some wild resources, which are wild animals. And the little resources are so beautiful. They're all these like wooden sun water drops, all different kinds of wild animals for the wild tokens. And it's just so beautiful. And it's basically, at its core, it's a set collection game. But there's also like these gear cards that can give you different ways of getting resources or discounts on cards. And then you're also trying to snap pictures, which give you points at the end. There's 2 expansions to this game already that add a whole different mechanics to it. There's a campsite one where you're actually camping and going to this other board and doing other actions, letting you switch your end game goals or add more end game goals and all kinds of things. And it's just so pretty. And we actually played this last night at D6 tabletop as well. Ashley had brought her wildlife expansion, which is the brand new one that just came out. It just has some more cards and a few new mechanics to the game, but it's just so pretty. And I love this game, and that's my number 3, Parks.
Well, my number 2 is Parks.
Nice.
And I mean, this one is just gorgeous. And the trays that it comes with are like a little shape of a tree branch. And then you have the lid and then all the little tokens on there. And it is interesting where you kind of send your little hikers ahead. And I mean, it's different because there's a shuffle. So then the layout of it is going to be different. And then you can score taking pictures. I think that's what made me win. I took so many pictures. Mind you, we were also not playing it quite right. Because when you get the second last person hiker in, then the last one has to kind of go in. But we were doing it where it's like, and I was always the last one for some reason. Then I just took my sweet time hitting each step going in, not realizing we weren't supposed to do it that way. And I played this one for the first time at Gobfest. And it's gorgeous looking because you have all these pictures of the national parks in the States and kind of all these different symbols you're trying to collect. And then the wooden tokens, like the bits, are beautiful, and the attention to details in this game is really neat. So yeah, number 2, parks.
Awesome. My number 2 is Wingspan, made in 2019 by Elizabeth Hargrave. The art in this one is there's quite a few people. There's Anna Maria Martinez, Jaramello, Natalie Rojas, Greg May, and also the infamous Beth Sobel, who's done so many other games. I think I've had 2 of them so far on my list. At least one other one on my list, but this game I was so looking forward to when it came out because I remember hearing that it was like an engine builder slash, what did they cross? They compared it to Terraforming Mars and Gizmos. Now Gizmos is just like a straight engine builder, and Terraforming Mars is, a tableau builder. But when it did come out, and I was so happy with it. And it's one that I've had since then, so that's at least 3 years, and I continue to play it over and over. And now it's on BGA, I get to play it, and it's very good implementation on there of the game, and so easy to play. But it's just so beautiful, and they do get a little bit ridiculous with coming out with more birds like all over the world. There's gonna literally be every single bird in this game eventually. But they are coming out with a big nesting box to keep it all in, which you will need if you do want all the expansions. But it's just so nice and relaxing again, and just such a fun engine builder. Very solo-like you don't really interact a whole lot. There is a bit, which is neat, where some of your cards will give other people things. There's no real that in this game, but there's a lot of positive player. What's that?
Unless they take the food you need.
Yeah, that's true, which always seems to happen. But
right.
But the positive player interaction is neat because you have to be aware. Okay, well, if somebody put an egg on their bird, well, I have to be able to, because what you're doing is you're building a tableau of birds that will go in different ecosystems, like wetland. What's the top one? Grassland, and now I can't remember what the middle one's called. And you're trying to fill your board if you can with the highest points possible, but also building an engine at the same time that will give you food and eggs, because eggs on any of the birds are basically points, and getting an engine where you can get more cards because you want more cards to be able to use, because there's some cards that allow you to tuck cards behind them, which are just straight points. And there's so many different scoring in this, because when you do an action, you'll go to the right of your board and do that action, then you'll move backwards and get to activate each card on there as you go back. So once you build up more birds, you're going to have a lot more actions to activate. And it's just such a neat game, and just so I find it so innovative, because I can't think of a game that has the same mechanic as it, other than the engine building itself. But it's just such a neat game, and I love it, and I never get sick of it. And that's my number 2, Wingspan.
Wingspan's definitely one that's widely appreciated. A lot of people talk about it. Yeah. My number 1 is a crossover with you. And that's Cascadia, published in 2021, created by Randy Flynn, and it was published by Flat Out Games. And this one is just such a neat, straightforward, simple game to play that's just tons of fun. And it's kind of neat because you're doing 2 puzzles. You're doing the puzzle with the placing the tiles and creating the terrain, trying to create the biggest clusters that you can of each type of terrain. And then you've got the puzzles with the animal tokens that you're adding on top. And each of these tiles have like different animals that you can take. So you'll be like, with this one, you can either put the bear or the salmon. And it's based on that limitation, and trying to match the terrain and trying to put the animals that you need on those to match up what the card's scoring requirement is for each animal. There's a lot of different things and aspect that you got to think out. About. My brother's actually playing because it has a campaign portion of it, and my brother's been doing that, and that's probably is his top game. He kind of keeps talking about Cascadia. I think that's all he's playing right now, but it's definitely neat. I've actually it comes with a draw bag, and you have all the animal tokens in it because you have all your tiles and the tokens on top, and you pick that that combination, unless you've collected a pine cone, and you can spend your pine cones for that. But the pine cones also do count as points at the end, so you want to be cautious with that. And when we played the one at Gofest, they actually had a second draw bag where they had all the tiles. So instead of stacking them all, they just had them. So I was like, that's genius. So I bought a second draw bag to kind of have the tiles in one, the animal tokens in the other. So like the setup and the getting to play is super quick, and then tear down is super quick as well. And it's just a fun one. And that's my number one, Cascadia.
Yeah, it's such a good game. My number one is, to me, is like a more of a fantasy nature game. It's a cartoon. The art is cartoonish, but this game reminds me of it's very seasonal. Like every season, at the change of every season, I want to play this game. I want to play this game all the time, though. This is my number one favorite game of all time, and that is Everdell, made in 2018 by James A. Wilson, and the art by Andrew Bosley and Dan May. Now, this game, I don't know why I love it so much. It's just, and I haven't had it in my hands since a few months ago when I sold it, because I'm still waiting for my big collector's edition to come. But it's just such a beautiful game. Like, Andrew and Dan did such a good job in the art. And the characters I'm saying are cards. It's a worker placement card tableau game, and you are trying to build up your village with 15 cards, and those will be all the animals or construction buildings that are in your village. And what you're trying to do is, of course, score the most points, but you need to go to the forest, and these are all the worker placement spots, and collect resources in order to build these cards. And then some cards will play off each other, and you can get a real good combo going. I mean, so there's some games where it's not going as well as you'd hoped, but then you just need to find an engine to get more cards to go through, because some of the buildings, once you've placed them, it'll be common construction, or what's the other word now? Common and I can't think of the word, but you'll build one, and it'll have a little circle in the bottom, and it'll show one of the characters that you can build for free. So I might build the farm, and then in the bottom, I can either build the wife or the husband. And so you can, once you have one of those in your hand, or in the meadow, because there are 8 cards that are placed in the meadow up front that everybody can use and build if they choose to. And so once you can find like a wife or husband, you can place them right in your village for free. You don't have to pay the cost in them. And then that's what you're trying to do, is kind of find all the different combinations. And then there's some cards that you'll want to remove from your village so that you can build other ones, and you need to find cards that will allow you to do that. There's so many expansions to this game, and there's even more coming out now with this collector's edition that are going to just add more cards and more mechanics. And it's just so fun, and I just love it. And that's my number one, Everdell.
Can you believe I have still not played this one?
No, I can't. But I can't even bring it to play with you yet, so.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one is like, okay, I gotta get this one played. Like, everybody talks about Everdell. And most of the games I purchase tends to be secondhand, right? Well, nobody sells that one. Yeah. Which I think speaks in,
I should have offered it to you when I sold it, but when I listed it, I literally had 20 people.
Yeah, remember you saying, well, yeah. And I kind of go where it'd be like, okay, yes, I'll buy a big expensive game, and then all of a sudden I get like buyer's guilt and be like, okay, no, just like cheap games. And it was like, okay, no, big game. And so it goes in waves.
Yeah, because I was selling it with 3 expansions, so it was bigger. Yeah, no, it was hard to sell, but I did it because I knew I upped my pledge so that I got everything in the one box, so I didn't have to sort.
When is that supposed to come?
In the next month or 2.
Oh,
I mean, it was supposed to be here in March, but of course every Kickstarter on Earth is late, so hopefully this one isn't that much late. But
no kidding.
Because fall is the most time I want to play this game. I don't know why that is the one that reminds me the most of this game is fall, but yeah. So that was our top 9. Now, next week, we are going to talk about... What did we decide on again? Oh, yeah, we are going to give shout-outs to other podcasts. We're going to list our top 9 podcasts that we listen to, which I love to listen to podcasts when I walk my dog every day. That's what I do. I plug in my earphones and head out and just listen, or even in my car on the way to work, on the way to anywhere. I don't listen to music anymore. I listen to podcasts and I love them.
I do the same.
Yeah.
I got a commute now because I've moved.
Yeah.
I've got a 40-minute commute in the morning. So I set up my podcast. I have like my phone kind of set up and then I listen to that on the way in. And you know what? I listen to us a lot too.
Yeah, me too. Always listen to ours when they come out. So, yeah.
And then when I do paperwork, I find paperwork bores me to death and I start falling asleep. So I need to have something that kind of keeps my mind kind of engaged so that I can kind of do this monotonous work. So
yeah, I actually do it when I'm cleaning too. I'll stick in my earphones because I can't carry my laptop around with me while I'm cleaning to watch YouTube, content creators. So I'll listen to it then as well. But yeah. So stay tuned for that next week. But until then, if people are looking to get a hold of you, where can they find you?
So I am on Facebook at Mel's and Friends Board Game Room. On Instagram, it's Mel's_boardgame_room. And my YouTube channel is Mel's Board Game Room. How about you, Carla? Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram at Board Game Specialist, all one word. And I have a Facebook page called Red Deer Board Game Fanatics. Well, thanks, guys, for listening today. And you will hear from us next week. Bye for now.
Bye.